Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Hayya ala salah. Once again, I rise and come forth giving all praises to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the highest of honors to his holy and divine prophet, Noble Drew Ali, an angel sent to the Moors of North America to redeem us from our sinful ways. I would like to give honors to the forerunner, the harbinger, the Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey, who did warn and stir up the nations, purity made manifest so he can pave the way for love. I would like to give honors to the Moorish American standard, the red flag with the 5-pointed green star in the center, representing the highest principles known to man: love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. And I would also like to acknowledge the United Mercantile Trading Banner, also known as the American flag. I would like to give honors to all Moorish Americans, both past, present, and future, regardless of grand bodies, who strive to promote this Moorish divine and national movement by way of the Prophet's holy instructions and divine laws. And I would like to give honors to all organizations who strive to promote the interests of all African Americans, people born of African descent, and indigenous people living in America. Islam? Islam. I would like to give honors to Temple Number 19, Office of the Grand Governor, the Lieutenant Grand Governor, the Assistant Grand Governor rather, the Sheik staff, the admin staff, and the acting vanguards to keep the peace. And last but certainly not least, I want to give honors to you, the L's and Bays, and the sacred groves, because when man honors man, he honors thy Father God Allah. All praises are due to Allah. Once again, I cannot say that enough for having us here on another holy day evening, so we may continue to build on things that make us better citizens and reason together. Islam was?
Islam.
I want to throw out a question while I was giving my honors. What does being a citizen mean to you? When everybody answer at once. When you say you're a citizen. Now, before you answer that question, I want you to think to yourself and be honest. Do you genuinely believe that you are a citizen of these United States of America? Because I know we have our reservations in stigma because of our servitude, us being reduced to property, etc., etc. But you know, given the course of actions ordained by Allah all the way up to this point, do you honestly consider yourself to be a citizen? And if so, what does that mean to you? Islam.
I rise giving honor and praise to Almighty God Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, and His holy and divinely prepared prophet, Noble Drew Ali.
Islam.
Yes, I am a citizen of the United States of America.
Islam.
To be a citizen of the United States of America means to be a citizen in general means to, you have to take part in the affairs of the government.
Right.
Voting, paying taxes, things of that nature.
Right. Islam. Anyone else? Okay. Let's be clear. Granted our current position and status, we are citizens, and as citizens, we have the right to have grievances. We have the right to be jaded. We have the right to for all of those things. And to the brother's Jalil point, those grievances and how we think and how we feel, they should encourage us, if anything, or make us more determined to make a difference in these United States of America. The most important thing, or one of the important things about being a member of the Moorish Science Temple of America, or being a member of any civil society, any form of mutual aid society, etc., etc., is of course having a purpose, knowing that there's room for improvement, knowing that there can be improvement. Those that are taking notes, look up civic society, look up mutual societies, look up republic societies. Our prophet mentioned this new era of time, and the new era of time, of course, can be interpreted in many different ways, but specific and relative to the time of the prophet, in the time of 1886, all going into the 19th century, the early 20th century, you had a lot of regime changes, as I mentioned before, where you had, monarchies transitioning into republics, democracies, if you will. And with that, there were small groups and societies that were working underground in certain cases, and in most cases they were working above ground for that transition. When you look at, if you were to research points and times in history where there was once an absolute monarchy, and you see a transition from it becoming a republic. Of course, one of the things that you notice set apart from from it being from that society or from that group of people being infiltrated by colonizers, is that you see that there was a group of men and women that saw that believed in the essence of what was going on. And when the essence being is that they didn't want to be colonized. Let's make that clear. They didn't want to be colonized, but the idea of a democracy, of a republic, of the people's voice being heard was something that was long overdue. When we talk about this ideology of, or when we consider the ideology and concepts of socialism and communism, we have to think about, are we really prepared for that? Do we really want that? Do we want, what kind of society do we want? When we think about becoming when we think about taking your place in the affairs of men, the Sheik staff, you hear that often. You hear that amongst the Sheik staff. You hear that on Facebook with sheiks and with other sheiks and masterminds taking your place in the affairs of men. What does that mean? What does that consist of? There is a society. There are societies and there are groups of people that come along and act as a segue and a transitional point for that paradigm shift. The Moorish Science Temple of America is that vessel for that paradigm shift. As I was reflecting today during the holy day, I was thinking about this book. I can only remember the brother's first name. It was Walter. I want to say Walter Rodney, but I could be wrong. Walter Rodney. How Africa was divided. You know what I'm talking about?
How Africa was how I think it is how Africa was underdeveloped.
Underdeveloped, yeah. For those that didn't, I think it's how Africa was underdeveloped. You should be able to Google that and still pull up the book. But the reason that I mention that, and I'm going somewhere with this. The reason that I mention this is that we are our forefathers, without a doubt of contradiction, and that comes with the good or bad. Africa during the time, they wanted to be in the affairs of men. And with that, they knew that they had resources. They knew that they had something to bring to the table. But the infighting and the tribalism was something that we just couldn't overcome. And we see that even today. We see that with different groups and organizations. One group thinks they're better than the next group. We have tribalism today. We can look at the street fraternities that are going on. We see that. Brother Lante, would you be able to assist that, brother? There's a thing with our people, with our ancestors and tribalism. But even within that tribalism, we wanted to change. We wanted a paradigm shift. So we allowed those that we thought was in our best interest to come in, and we allowed ourselves to be vulnerable. And that led to a series of events that led us to today. We have to learn from our experiences and learn from our transgressions. But now, because again, once we're in a position where we can make a change, what does that change looks like to you? You saying that you're a Moorish American, what does Moorish American look like to you? What does some Moorish American community look like to you? Is it beyond, it has to, your ideology of this Moorish divine and national movement has to go beyond these four walls. You have to see the road that you have 5 or 10 years down the line. Just like a career. When you get a job, you know, you excited about a job. This job pays X amount of dollars per hour. You happy, you can start rolling in the dough. But then now you have to think about, where am I going to be, peace family? Where am I going to be 5, 10 years along the line? Will I still be with this company? If so, how do I see myself? You know, how do I want to improve? All right. Being in the Moorish sign symbol of America, you have to see yourself as a citizen. You have to see yourself as one of the many agents that desire improvement, not just for the Moorish American community, but for the Asiatic community. So that includes the people that do not consider themselves to be Moorish American, because the honest truth is everyone is not going to consider themselves to be Moorish American. So does that mean that they are not afforded the same benefits as you are? Does that mean that because they don't consider themselves they don't refer to the Father God or the great God as Allah, then that's an issue? No, because we're all of one same family. When we look at countries, when we look at the old countries and how they are developed, the level of integrity that was kept in place, or some of the level of integrity, they still have their culture. You do not want to be in a position where you have your culture stripped away from you. All right. So when we talk about change, when we talk about growth, let's not even say change. When we talk about growth has to involve, the foundation of a culture. It has to have a foundation of values, of boundaries that you won't cross or won't do anything for. And that was one of the downfalls of our foremothers and forefathers. We wanted to defeat local tribes so much. It didn't matter that we let people that didn't look like us in. It didn't matter that, once, we traded our own people for guns, bullets, and rum, and land. And if we look at it today, we're trading our own people. We're dry snitching, we wet snitching, we just straight out snitching.
That's right. That's right.
For guns, rum, and land. And then the question is, do you really own that territory? So I asked that question because I want to get the gears turning. We're going to talk about this concept today. Well, I'm going to talk about this concept. I want to discuss this concept with you today. This concept is called sincerity. All right. When you think of the word sincerity, what is it that you think? What comes to mind? What is sincerity? When you're sincere about something, yes, sir.
I'm asking praise to Allah and on a property or no dwelling.
Islam.
Sincerity means being true to what you standing for, believing in.
Okay. What else comes to mind when you think of sincerity? Okay. See, oh. Go ahead, brother.
Islam, I rise, giving all praise to Father God Allah and His divine prophet Noble Drew Ali.
Islam.
Sincerity, like genuineness, you know, really coming off as like just being real.
Okay. All right. And you, brother, you raise your hand as well.
Man, I don't really know what to say.
That's all right. I'll work it out. I'll work it out.
Okay.
All right. You gonna stand like this.
Yeah. All right. So this, or is this?
Can you remove your toboggan for me, brother? That's all right.
My curls, you know.
That's all right.
All right.
And say, I rise,
I rise,
giving praise to Allah,
giving praise to Allah,
and the highest of honors,
and the highest of honors,
to Noble Drew Ali,
to Noble Drew Ali,
the Prophet, Islam. You are now
All right.
recognized.
I think sincerity is being kind, but being careful about, I guess, being emphatic per se.
Okay.
Kind and emphatic.
Okay, Islam. Now, I wanna do a quick sidebar real quick, because I talked about a few moments ago social societies. For the ones that just came in, I talked about what does this movement, what does this idea of this Moorish Divine and National Movement mean to you? What does it mean to be a Moorish American? I asked questions, do you consider yourself to be a citizen? All that stuff, that's what I asked. So as I do a quick sidebar, I want y'all to think about that. Even, this is a Holy Day meeting. And the Holy Day meeting, as well as all general meetings of the Moorish Science Temple of America, is conducted in a formal fashion. How many of us have heard of Robert's Rule of Order? Okay, so if we watch C-SPAN, if we watch CNN, and we look at the Congress and we look at the House and the Senate and so on and so forth, we desire as in a larger scale to operate in that manner. So when we ask you before you speak, instead of just blurting out whatever your thoughts are and so on and so forth, we want you to be recognized. Why are we doing this? Because we're preparing you again to be involved in the affairs of men. I got you, brother. How many of us have been to a city council meeting before? Okay. Now, I've been to a city council meeting myself, and I'll be honest with you all. We're not ready yet. We're not ready yet. I'll tell you real quick, two experiences from a city council meeting. One experience, I had this guy come to the rostrum, European by the way, and he gave the first verse of Gangsta's Paradise. And that was his grievance. He came to the rostrum, he didn't acknowledge anybody. He said everyone, and started singing Gangsta's Paradise. The first verse of Gangsta's Paradise, and then he came off the rostrum. And then it was like 3 or 4 other good brothers, I believe, that came up and they complained, and you know they were soapbox preachers. Nobody stayed to see what laws were being passed, how much money was getting. It was over $1 billion that was going towards private and non-profit organizations to push certain agendas. And the irony of it is that these were the same issues that people were coming to the rostrum for. So when we talk about being a citizen, we are talking about operating wholesale. We're talking about taking on everything in capacity. So just because, as a citizen, just because you have the right to complain, also means that you also have the responsibility to provide a solution. Yes, sir. Because I'll get sidetracked and I'll go into something else. Yes, sir.
Just 2 points. One is in terms of when you were mentioning as far as the Robert's rules and things of that nature. I was watching a video with Temple 11 in Philly,
right,
and how they were being recognized by the city council up there,
right.
You know, and for each person that went up, you know, the council president, you know, he had to be recognized,
right.
You know, you couldn't just go up there and talk. And to my other point, when I would go to the city council meetings downtown, you know, they have different meetings as far as they have public. I think it's public safety,
right,
and then they have what's the other one? Some it's public safety, then I think community development,
right,
and then a a lot of people will come to the public safety
Right.
meeting because, you know, police and all that, but the room will be kind of empty
Right.
for the community development, and that's when $500,000, $800,000 is being allocated to
Right.
houses and, you know, turning connexes into living spaces. You
Right.
know, so just and seeing how those, just like your point, you know, it's a lot of the older brothers go up there, they just this and you ain't doing this for black people, but
Right.
you know, they had the presenters come up and acknowledge the council, and
Right.
get things done and get emotions moved as opposed to being overly emotional about it.
Right. I think I came in on the tail end of, like you said, the development meeting, where, you know, you had a lot of nonprofit, for-profit, and private organizations. They were being acknowledged by city council because they were helping to push forward the city. And just to make it plain, organizations, the goal of organizations is to assist the government. We may not like it. We may think that it's unfair. In our minds, we gotta process it different. But to generally speaking, and I'm gonna move forward. But generally speaking, the state, we think as citizens that we pay taxes, and the state allocates where it's supposed to go. Or if we complain, the state allocates where it needs to go. No, what happens is the state allocates the money to a private corporation, to a nonprofit organization, and say, hey, I need y'all to do this for us. Now, if they can't find anyone, or the budget if it's within the budget to do it themselves, they will. That's why you have city workers. But otherwise, they'll go move someone else. That's why they have things to talk about. Well, you know, they'll give honors and awards and even funding to those organizations that'll go out and do something as simple as pick up the tires that are around the city, you know, or do a cleanup. The Moorish Science Temple of America should be looking into owning, being an adopted highway. You know, I don't know if there's a sign out here of Cleveland Avenue, but I think we as an organization, I think we've cleaned Cleveland Avenue at least 5 times. So we should at least look into saying, okay, well, can we adopt this street to care for it, et cetera, et cetera. You know, we have to come out, we have to go out and teach these people and show these people that we're not an organization of just talkers and philosophizers, and we're just going around poking our chests up, you know, with our fezzes on, you know, because they want to see the change, you know. So that's where the sincerity comes in. Where's the sincerity in your heart to say, okay, I'm a part of this organization, and I'm compelled to do something. I'm inspired to do something. It's a selfless act. Being a member of the Moorish Science Temple of America is a selfless act. You granted that you have to improve yourself. You want your condition to be better. But the thing to remember is that I'm pretty sure that your condition that you want to be better is the same as your brother or your sister's condition that's next to you. And it's even worse. So we come into this organization for self-improvement. We come into this organization for wisdom and understanding and so on and so forth. But ultimately, it's the improvement. While you're improving on yourself, we have to look out for those that are less fortunate. So that's where this becomes a selfless act. So we're going to talk about sincerity and the importance of sincerity. Now, before we talk about sincerity, sincerity for those that have the Moorish Science Temple of America, the Holy Quran, the Moorish Science Temple of America, we're going to go chapter 34, sincerity. Did everyone understand what I was saying about, you know, I made a oversimplification of roles and citizenship in city government. Did that make sense, or do y'all have any questions?
Islam.
Okay. Islam, you got any questions? I understand. Islam,
I
you
understand.
understand. Okay. All right. I was, for those also looking at opening up the Moorish Holy Quran on page 2, you see, or on page 2. On page 2, you see Abdul Aziz Ibn Saud. I was looking up Saud earlier this week. Again, Saud was a visionary. How many of us have heard of Saudi Arabia? Okay, well, that brother is the reason why we have Saudi Arabia. It's the Arabia of the Sauds, or the Arabia that belongs to the Sauds. He was responsible for the unification of Arabia. Arabia prior to that were a group of tribes. When we talk about China, how many of us have heard of China? China was a cluster of providences. How many of us have seen the movie Hero? Okay. When you get a chance, write it and look up Hero. Now, Hero, of course, is a fictional tale, but the reason that I mention Hero is because the premise of Hero is that you were having a Jet Li's character. He was hired to assassinate the would-be ruler of China because he wanted to unite China. And when you listen to, and what's interesting about the movie is that you see the movie through different vantage points and then they go through a period of why they don't want to unite China, but then once they meet the emperor and they see the vision of a one China, of them being a force, then they change their minds. Because when we think of a uniting of a people, or when we think of a uniting of a group, we thinking about all these different personalities. How many personalities we got in this room? We got about 10 personalities in this room. Now, out of these 10 personalities in this room, we have to work together and do something. We're gonna have an issue. We're gonna have an issue with I may not be working fast enough. I'm a Libra, so by nature I'm just a slowpoke. People gonna be complaining Rashid is like super slow. They gonna be talking about this brother's always yelling all the time. Why don't he just talk with an even tone of voice? This brother right here, he too cool. I need all of that stuff. But we gotta work together. So there has to be what? A common bond. There has to be a common interest. And the common interest when China and when Saudi Arabia, when they saw it, was the preservation of their own identity. They saw that being as a collective actually preserved your tribal cultures and identities when you were seen as a whole. So that means nobody can come through and just defeat the Bedouins or the Bedouin tribes. Because if you dealt with the Bedouin tribes, then you had to deal with the whole of Saudi Arabia. Nobody can come through and deal with the Cantonese or the Mandarin people or the Hui people in China. You had to deal with the whole of China. So again, that's the concept of having a union. The United States of America. Let's go back to that. The United States of America is, when we talk about states, there's so many dimensions to the word state. But to keep it simple and to keep it in context, when we talk about the United States of America, we're talking about an initial group of 13 colonies that wanted to establish their own well-being, a state or status. They wanted to have their own industrial, agricultural, and social status. And they didn't want it to be they didn't want it to be compromised, to say the least. All right, so they said, well, what we'll do is that we'll unite together. We'll unite as 13 colonies. We'll unite as the United States of America. All 13 statuses, 13 estates, however you want to call it. They wanted to unite to assure that the collective was stronger than the separate. That's why they went through so many. That's why they went through the treaty of, not the Treaty of Peace and Friendship. The Constitution, and before that they had the Articles of Confederation and so on and so forth, because they had to establish what it meant to be unified. They thought that being unified was a friendship, but then they said no, maybe it's a confederacy. Then they say no, it has to be a constitution. Now when we talk about a confederacy, what's the difference between a friendship, a confederacy, and a constitution? Now, when you're saying that you're just friends, you know, that's allowing you, that's saying that you understand each other's place, but you're still allotting them and allowing them to do a certain thing. And you can't, as a friend, or you're supposed to, as a friend, hold your people accountable, but you're not holding them accountable. As a confederation, you're just saying that it's co-fidelity, but the co-fidelity is still, it was amongst, it wasn't established, it wasn't fully solidified, because you still had people doing their own thing. But as a constitution, people was adhering to a constitution because that means that there was one covenant that everybody had to adhere to. One covenant that everybody had to adhere to. So that's what made the Constitution so significant, because regardless if I'm in Texas, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, so on and so forth, my Constitution, even in those respective states, still had to adhere to that single Constitution. Does that make sense? Okay. I know I'm saying a lot. I know I'm unpacking a lot, but this is what goes into being a citizen. When you receive that card in the Moorish Science Temple of America that says, I am a citizen of the USA, Noble Drew Ali the Prophet, this is what we're talking about. This is the information that we need to have. This is the information that you need to be aware of. Because this is not, oh, I got a fez on, oh, I have a turban on, let's go bang on the government. Let's go yell on the government. Let's go say what we ain't gonna do. That's not what it is. We are, amongst many things, we are a civil society. We are a civil society, we are a mutual society, we are a civic organization, we are a religious organization, we're all of that. So what part are you going to embody? What part are you going to promote and perpetuate? Now, essentially, we want you to perpetuate all of the above, but there's going to be one or two things, or a few things rather, that you're going to gravitate towards, because that's just what you're good at. All right. So again, that comes with having sincerity in this movement. There's a sincerity in saying, okay, I'm a member of this Moorish Science Temple of America. How devoted am I to this group? How devoted am I to this organization? We talk about a hammer. How many of us heard of a hammer? I know there's many parts of a hammer. We're talking about the hammer. We're talking about the tool. Oh. I knew. All right. All right. It says in the tools in the workshop of the mind, we use the hammer to drive home the truth and make it a part of every part. A part of every part. I've said it before, and this is going to be around. I'm going to say it until y'all understand that Moorish American is not who you are, it's what you do. Sorry, it's not what you do, it's who you are. Moorish American is not what you do, it's who you are. So, I'll give you an example. I'm an artist by trade. I'm a visual artist. I'm a graphic designer. But a lot of my influences and my dedication is going to be towards propagating the movement. So whatever visual artwork is going to be geared towards one or two things. It's going to be geared towards perpetuating the ideology of the Asiatic peoples, or perpetuating the ideology of this Moorish Divine and National movement. All right. The things that I do, whether I learn my trade and I improve on my trade, is going to be for the betterment of the organization. So whatever trades and whatever ideas and whatever gifts and blessings that you have should be devoted to the organizations. I'm not saying anything new. I'm saying something that every other organization does. Every other group of people, that's what they do. Prove me wrong. This is what we have to get in the habit of doing. This is why, this is the work. This is the work of the Moorish Science Temple of America. The work of the Moorish Science Temple of America is to establish your character, is to change your paradigm, change your thinking, and say, okay, this is how I'm supposed to think as a Moorish American. This is how I'm supposed to move as a Moorish American. Because other than that, guess what? You're just a Negro with a fez on.
That's right.
And there's a lot of those going around. Just look on Facebook. So when we going back to this Moorish Holy Quran, we think that this Moorish Holy Quran is going to be similar to Message to the Black Man. With all due respects to the most honorable Elijah Muhammad. But this talks about nothing about banging on the European. It talks about your own self-improvement. It talks about your own ailments. And again, it talks about these, and it gives you a specific prophet that you are more than familiar with, and said he was dead too, but he also resurrected himself. So let me go back. Sincerity. All of this cannot be done if you're not sincere about this movement. If you don't have the best intent of what you're doing, how can you improve? Are you genuinely improving? How much of a work are you? How much are you improving in this journey that you have? All right. So, as customary in the Moorish Science Temple of America, I'm going to read the front cover. Holy Quran of the Moorish Science Temple of America, divinely prepared by the noble prophet Drew Ali, by the guiding of his Father God Allah, the great God of the universe, to redeem man from his sinful and fallen stage of humanity back to the highest plane of life with his Father God Allah. Islam Wars? Islam. All right. So I told y'all that I will be drawing forward from chapter 34, right? All right. So keep on chapter 34. I want y'all to keep there. Keep at chapter 34. And before I read chapter 34, I am going to, those taking notes, I am going to read chapter 8. All right. Now, no, I'm not going to go that far. I'm not going to go too deep. All right. Chapter 8 talks about Jesus revealing to the people their sinful ways. Now, the prophet says that sin is anything that deludes to slavery, right? Okay. So it starts off with instruction 1. In all the cities of Orissa, Jesus taught. At Katak, by the riverside, he taught, and thousands of the people followed him. I want to stop right there. If you all remember what I mentioned to y'all before, where is Jesus? Where did Jesus say he was in this? Just in instruction 1.
In the cities of Orissa.
All right. So he was in Orissa, and he was also at Katak. So for those that are taking notes, you write down Orissa, and you write down Katak, and you find out what they are, where they are. What does Orissa mean? What does Katak mean? Why was Jesus there? Not only was he there, but he was by the river. All right. Now, just to give y'all a little bit of information about Orissa, a lot of people in my Ifa community, may Allah be pleased with them. You know, they like to say, well, that's Orissa. You know, no, it's not Orissa. Orissa, also known as Odisha or Odisha, that is a city in India. Does anybody know what Hindu means? Or Indian? Indian means Hindu, and Hindu means river. Don't believe me? Look it up. So Indian. So they're talking about the people of the river. All right. And also with Jesus, you're always going to see him by a river. You're going to always see him by water. All right. So look that up as well. All right. Katak or Cuttack is the second largest city in India. It is also considered to be a military establishment. All right. So instruction 1, Jesus taught in Orissa, and he also taught at Katak by the river. All right. In instruction 2, it says, one day a car of Jagannath was hauled along by the scores of frenzied men, and Jesus said, behold, a form without a spirit passes, a body with no soul, a temple with no altar fires. This car of Krishna is an empty thing, for Krishna is not there. All right. Instruction 5 says, this car is but an idol of people drunk on the wine of carnal things. And then I'm going to read, and then it goes on by saying, instruction 6, Allah lives not in the noise of tongues. I suggest that you all highlight or underline that. Instruction 6, Allah lives not in the noise of tongues. There is no way to him from any idol shrine. Instruction 7, Allah's meeting place with man is in the heart. And in a still small voice he speaks, and he who hears is still. Remember, we talked about the heart chakra, the anhata. The anhata means to be still, to be calm. All right? So even before you speak, your heart has to be still. Your heart has to be calm. Right? Instruction 9. And Jesus said, the holy breath cannot be seen with mortal eyes, nor can men see the spirits of the Holy One. But in their image, man was made, and he who looks into the face of man looks at the image of Allah, of the Allah who speaks within. Instruction 11 says, and when man honors man, he honors Allah, and what man does for man, he does for Allah. All right. Now I just wanted to read that as a preface, and now we're going to go to instruction 34. All right. For those, look up Krishna. All right. Now it's very interesting. We have Brahman, and if any of us are familiar with the ideology or the religion of Hinduism, we have Brahman. Brahman is the superior. He is the cardinal deity, if you will. But then he also has two other parts. He has a trinity, if you will. You have Vishnu, and then you have Shiva. Vishnu is creation, and Shiva is destruction. All right. Now, what's interesting is that when we talk about destruction, we talk about something that's very malicious. All right, but the nature of the way Allah works, and Allah works within Allah works the universe, if you will, is that there has to be some destruction. There has to be a breaking down of things for it to be created, for it to be built up. This device right here, the molecular structure had to be destroyed and torn down for it to be reformed into this object. So when we look at our Moorish Holy Quran, you're looking at the deconstruction of the Negro. You're looking at the deconstruction of the ideology of being a Negro, black, and colored, in hopes, inshallah, that you are able to reform yourself as a Moorish American, as one of the Asiatic family. But in order for you to do that, you have to identify that you are destroyed, that you are broken, and that you need to be repaired. So as long as we think that we approach this thing like, oh, I'm not broken, I just, I know this is the final step for me to whatever, then we're always going to hit a wall. We're going to hit a wall of growth. We're going to hit a wall of development. We're going to hit a wall of understanding. Because we're only going to see this movement, only going to see the works of this movement only as the surface. Oh, I already know about Jesus. I want to know about something else. But this is you. You may need to know about it again. Repetition is the father of learning. To get better at something, you have to continuously do it. I draw each and every day, even when I don't feel like it. Every times I don't feel like it, I go home, I go to work, I come home, I got to talk to people. Then I have to sit down 11 o'clock at night and I got to draw something. And I'm tired. And then I got to do it again, 5 o'clock in the morning. But if I want to get better at it, if I want to improve, then guess what? I have to do it. It's the same thing with this movement. Prophet said in the Moorish Holy Quran, if I ask you what to study, I would say yourself. And when I study and I come back, and you come back and I ask you what to study again, I'm going to reply, yourself. So this is a continuous thing. Mastery is a lifelong journey. It's a continuous journey. Islam?
Islam.
Instruction 34, well, chapter 34 rather. Instruction from the Prophet on sincerity. So we're talking about sincerity. Instruction 1, O thou who art enamored with the beauty of truth, and hast fixed thy heart on the simplicity of her charms, hold fast thy fidelity unto her, and forsake her not. The consistency or the constancy of thy virtue shall crown thee with honor. I want you all to highlight that, because that is the cusp of what sincerity is. When we talk about sincerity, that is summed up right then and there. And I'm going to read it again and we're going to break it down. O thou who art enamored with the beauty of truth. What does it mean to be enamored?
Coated.
Coated. Okay.
Coated.
Enchanted.
Enchanted. Okay. Enamored with the beauty of truth. All right. I'm going to tell y'all right now, all of y'all are here. Why? Because y'all want to know the truth. That's what y'all are here, right? I want to know the truth. I want to know the truth. The truth. The truth. That's what y'all say. It's not the truth. Y'all want to know the truth. So it says, thou who art enamored with the beauty of truth, and has fixed thy heart on the simplicity of her charms. Hold fast thy fidelity unto her, and forsake her not. So what does that mean? It says, on the simplicity of her charms. That means that the truth that we are seeking is a little bit more in depth than we perceive it to be. It's not, and that's not a negative thing. It's just that we are accustomed to seeing things as it is, black or white. Now there is a black or white, but guess what? But in between that black and white, there was a process for the black to become a white. So what is that? There's a gray. All right. So there is a gray area. All right. So within that gray area, that exists as well. All things exist for a reason. But it says, hold fast thy fidelity unto her, and forsake her not. So for those who are, in the more simpler terms, those who are interested in the truth, be loyal to it once you find it. Don't let it go and don't forsake it. So once you find the truth, you can't turn back. It says on page 3 of this Moorish Holy Quran that these lessons are for what? For those who love Jesus, and for those who want to learn to love instead of hate. And do not misuse these teachings. You are not to misuse these teachings, because these teachings are the truth. So once you learn the truth, it is beholden unto you to exercise these truths. Right?
Wow.
And forsake her not. The constancy of thy virtue shall crown thee with honor. What is constancy? Constant. So that means that once you know the truth, you have to exercise and embody that truth. You have to be honorable to that truth. And you have to do it what? All the time. Continually. And then the prophet says, you know what? Y'all may not know what constancy means. So let me tell you what inconstant means. And let me tell you a few chapters later on what inconstancy means. And so y'all can kind of better understand what constancy is. All right? Instruction 2 says, the tongue of the sincere is rooted in the heart. Where's the nearest place to meet Allah?
In the heart.
Hypocrisy and deceit have no place in his words. Instruction 3. He blusheth at falsehood and is founded, but in speaking the truth, he hath a steady eye. So he's afraid to even lie. He can't even hold his lie. But when it's speaking the truth, he gonna look you dead square in the eye. There's gonna be a tone in his voice, because he wants you to know. Because as a matter of fact, he's enamored with it. So when you're enamored with it and you believe in it and you want this thing, you're gonna represent it. You're gonna support it. Instruction 4, he supporteth as a man the dignity of his character. To the arts of hypocrisy he scorneth to stoop. Let's talk about this word dignity for a minute. The dignity of his character. What is dignity? Say that again.
Worth.
You said the works?
Worth.
Oh, the worth. Okay.
I would say like pride.
Okay, so we got the worth.
Pride in a way, like it's kind of like pride mixed with it, something else.
Okay. For those who have look up, for those who don't know what dignity is. All right. Dignity is the state or quality of being worthy of honor or respect. And what is nationality? That quality, say it again, that quality of character that arises from a person belonging to a nation or state. All right. So again, this movement is about developing and improving your character. So the dignity, the quality of your character, or he's supportive as a man, the quality of his character. All right. To the arts of hypocrisy, he scorneth to the stoop. So again, you're giving this, you're giving this concept of not being waverly, hypocrisy. In Al-Islam, it's called munafiq. Munafiq is the hypocrite. All right. One of the worst things you can do in Al-Islam, in the degree of Muhammad, is to be a hypocrite.
That's right.
All right. You're either going to be, you can't be lukewarm. You got to be hot or cold.
Hot or cold.
All right. Instruction 5. He is consistent with himself, and he is never embarrassed. He hath courage enough for truth, but to lie he is afraid. That sounds very unordinary, because a lot of us, myself included, I'm going to include myself because this goes past my ears too, I have no problem with lying. We'll lie with a straight face, we'll lie with a happy face, we'll lie and cry to make it look real. We'll call off from work, we'll call off from school and cough and all that stuff. We will.
You're right, brother.
But there was a man that told me in my younger years, he said, never, as long as you tell the truth, you will never, for one, you will never have to cover it up. But you will be respected for it. They may not like you, but at least they know who you are as a man. They know your quality of your character. So you can come up with an excuse not to come in and work, but one of the most difficult things that I had to do as a young man at the time is just be like, well, I just don't want to come to work today. And that's what I did. I didn't say I was sick. I didn't say anything like that. I didn't say my cat was in the tree or nothing like that. I just said, I just wasn't feeling it today and I'm going to have to holler at y'all tomorrow.
That's right.
And my supervisor said, okay, I understand. I'll see you tomorrow. Now, we're a work in progress. So, you know, for you to have a lie, you have to continue that lie. You have to remember that you went down the street and you saw Batman, and then when you saw Batman asked for the ride, and then when you saw Batman ask for the ride, the penguin, you got to keep that up, and you got to remember that stuff. It's a lot to remember.
You're right, brother.
Instead of just being honest and truthful to yourself. He is far above, we're on instruction 6. He is far above the meanness of dissimulation. The words of his mouth are the thoughts of his heart. What is dissimulation? We know what dissimulation means? Concealing of one's thoughts, feelings, or character. Okay? So he said he is far above. So in other words, he doesn't have a wall put up. All right. He has no problem with expressing his thoughts and opinions and so on and so forth because it comes from the heart. So we are becoming, if not already, at the point where we want to hold things in. We want to hold things in and bottle things in until we just explode, and then we become an emotional wreck, and then we lash out at somebody. I told you I don't want the potatoes. You'd be like, where did that come from? And when this was something that it was built up from 2 weeks ago. So when we talk about truth has to not just stay within the heart. I can't just be the one. I can't be an agent of truth, if you will, and keep it concealed. There's another thing in Al-Islam, in the degree of Muhammad, called kafir. Kafir, they will have you believe that being a kafir is one that is an unbeliever. But kafir is the same as kufar or kufi, which means to cover. So to be a kafir is not to conceal or not to be an unbeliever, but it's someone that conceals the truth. And believe it or not, there's a lot of that in the conscious community.
Yes, sir.
For a fee. We'll say, okay, well, yeah, you can get this knowledge, but $25. You with me, Queen Ty? So, yet prudence, well, man, okay, yeah. Yet with prudence and caution, he openeth his lips. He studieth with what's right and speaketh with discretion. All right? Who knows what it means to be prudent? To be kind, to know what's right. All right? He adviseth with friendship, he reproveth with freedom, and whatsoever he promiseth shall surely be performed. A man's word is his bond. I will give my life before I give up my word should not fail.
That's right.
Something to that extent. All right. Being a man of your word is important. If you can't do what you promised that you were going to do, then don't say you can do it. There's this thing. There's this running gag in Temple number 19. The brothers for a time had a tendency to use the word inshallah loosely. All right. So we'll say, yeah, man, I can make it, inshallah. Oh yeah, man, I'll be able to take you to your court appointment, inshallah. All right. Now, for those of you all that are not familiar with the Arabic language, fi Arabia, inshallah means if Allah wills. Now, in the context of if Allah wills, that means I have to make an effort. And that means if I make this effort and my tire blows. So if I'm on the way to go pick you up, to go do something, and my tire blows, that's the inshallah. Because somewhere along the line, Allah wasn't permitting me to come up and do it, or something had to happen. Who knows? But inshallah is not synonymous with maybe. That was the issue. Brothers would be like, yeah, man, I'm going to meet you there and we're going to go do these things, inshallah. Maybe. Inshallah is not a maybe. For those taking notes, write that down. Islam war. So, as a man, as a Moorish American, you are bound to your word. You do what you say you're going to do.
That's right.
Being a friend, all right? Friendship is another concept that's being thrown around, all right? If I say that I'm your friend, that means I'm your friend even when I don't like you. That doesn't mean that I'm not going to like you forever, but apparently there's a misunderstanding in communication. There's a misunderstanding because someone said that they were going to do something, or something was said that was not reached to a point of, okay, well, we can agree to disagree. All right? So you can't say that I'm going to be your friend in one instance and then in another instance, you're not friends anymore, because you were never friends to begin with. All right? And as a friend, you should be open to be criticized. You're not above criticism. And it should be the same way to the person that you consider your friend. Now, one thing I want us to remember when we talk about, if someone's giving you a critique, or if somebody's giving you an advisory, that is not to your character. I'm going to say that again. If somebody is giving you a critique, that is not to your character. It's to your actions. Because it was somewhere along the lines that your actions didn't line up to the person that you were supposed to be, or that you said that you were. So if I say that I'm an honest man and so on and so forth, but you see me in the alleyway doing things, doing unsavory things, then I should be called on that. I'm not called on my character, I'm called on the actions. Does that make sense? Instruction 9, but the heart of the hypocrite is hid in his breast. He maketh his words in the semblance of truth, while his business of his life is only to deceive. What is the semblance? Yes, sir.
It's like the guise of...
The guise, the disguise, the semblance of truth. There's a lot of semblances of truth going on. All right? So we have to be mindful of what we know, what we think to be truth. And we know that truth changes not. So we have to use our five senses to identify what certain truths are. All right? And not to be fooled, or to be in a bubble and thinking if my custom does not match your custom, then that is not the truth. All right? Because that's where the set tripping comes in. Instruction 10, he laugheth in sorrow, he weepeth in joy. And the words of his mouth have no interpretation. What does that mean? He said he laugheth in sorrow and he weepeth in joy. And the words of his mouth have no interpretation. Yes, sir.
Kind of put in colloquial terms, he's kind of all over the place.
No. No, he's actually saying. So, yes, sir.
To the point?
To the point. So that's the last part, with no interpretation. Like, so in other words, if y'all ask me a question and I talk about everything else except for the answer, that's very vague. My job as a sheik is, if you ask me a question, I need to give you a direct answer. If you ask to expound upon that answer, if time permits, then I do so. But I don't. If you ask me, who was Allah to the Moors, and I talk about something else in Kentucky, then I'm doing something wrong. If I say I don't know, then just say I don't know. But he laugheth in sorrow. That means he's not sweating the small stuff. So even because it's even in the midst of having issues in your life, we should know that victory is sure because Allah is leading on. Amen. If we're all missionaries we're all missionaries in the house of Ali, if we're all of the faithful, then we should know that Allah got us. It says in the Quran of Muhammad, how are you to call yourself of the faithful and not be tested? We're not going to tell. Okay, let's break it down another way. If you say that you're a mastermind, Allah via the universe is going to test you. That's that law of attraction. So you're going to say, okay, well, you're a mastermind, you got all these degrees and so on and so forth, and you the supreme master wisdom man, woman. How you going to handle this? And if you revert, if your name is Hassan, and when your tire blow, you revert back to being Leroy, then that's a problem. Because you haven't exercised what your higher thoughts are. And he weepeth in joy. I got you, brother. And he weepeth in joy. That's tears of happiness. That's all that is. Yes, sir.
So why do you think that if Allah knows that you're going to pass a test, why does the test need to be given?
Without a foe, a soldier never knows his strength. So in other words, how would you know that you are a good boxer if you've never been in a boxing match before? If you practicing and you shadow boxing and you never got in front of nobody to really test out your skills, how are you going to know how good you are? Think about that. If I say that if I take boxing class and I'm the baddest mofo, and then all of a sudden I get in the ring and I get knocked out, I need to go back to practicing.
That's right.
All right, but there is a lesson in that. I get to know that what my weaknesses are. That I need to come back and I need to bob before I need to weave. That I need to watch my man's shoulders and all that stuff. If I don't know that, then how am I going to improve? See, we think, and then also what I want us to remember too. This is a difficult pill for us to swallow. We make and mar our own way. What does that mean, Sheik? That means that there was a period, there are a series of events that culminates to where we are right now. Does that mean that we're bad people and that we make bad decisions? Sometimes. But we are able, but that is the beauty of being where we are right now, because we can learn from those mistakes. Now, if we continue to do those things, then that means there's a pattern. That means someone needs to pull us to a side and say, hey, bro, hey, sis, you're doing so and so and so. I've seen you do this before. I've seen you do this again. I think we need to change your process. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
All right. So if you get to this point, I'll give you a perfect example. My phone cracked. I can't blame Allah for my phone being cracked. I didn't have a case. Throw it around, I dropped it. I'm all over the place. There was a point where Allah said, I think you need to have a case. And I didn't listen. We have this thing. Remember what I read before? I read this, and that's one of the reasons why I read chapter 8. Because it talks about Allah speaking in the still small voice. And we've heard that still small voice before. You know what we did? We call it our first mind. I should have listened to my first mind. And when it said not to take 75 going X, Y, Z because it's an accident, I decided to take that anyway. Where I'm at, 11. And this is talking about the hypocrite now. So we have one of the sincere man, and we have the opposite of the hypocrite. So now we're talking about the hypocrite. The hypocrite in instruction 11 says, he worketh in the dark as a mole, and he fancieth that he is safe. But he blundereth into the light, and is betrayed and exposed with dirt on his head. I think that's pretty clear cut, right? Why you laughing? Why you laughing, more? I want to know what your thoughts are on that.
Like you said, it's pretty clear cut.
Right. But how many of us know someone that thinks they're smarter than Allah?
Wow.
There's this song on Lauryn Hill's album that says people lie to God every day. What makes you think that they won't lie to you? But who is the person that thinks that they can lie to Father God Allah? Like Allah knows within your heart. Allahu Alam. Allah knows everything. So even if something is going on in your life and you say, well, Allah, if you do this, I'm gonna be straight. No, you ain't. That's what Allah's saying. No, you ain't. Look at the Israelites in the Old Testament. How many times they be like, we're gonna get right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
We need to escape Pharaoh. You open up, we're going to get right after you. And then what? How many years they wandered? For 40 years?
40 years.
After they've been redeemed. Complaining. Allahu Akbar. Instruction 12. He passeth his days in perpetual constraint. His tongue and heart are forever at variance. Now, brother Jalil, now that's to your point where you're saying he was waverly. Because if your tongue and your heart is forever at variance, there's a problem. Because if there comes a point in your life where you have to consider and think about something, you want to consider your options. You want to, in the decision that you want to make sure it's good within your heart. If it's not well within your heart, then you need to re-examine this issue. You need to re-examine what your thoughts are. If you say, well, yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and do this anyway, and your heart's not in it, you know what that's called? That's called buyer's remorse. We get that feeling every time that we kick out so many amounts of dollars for that new TV that just came out, or that new video game, or that new car that we wanted to get because we just had to have it. But then if there's any time you make a decision and you get buyer's remorse, that means you should have thought about it a few more times before you made that decision. All right? Instruction 13. He laboreth for the character of the righteous man, and huggeth himself in the thoughts of his cunning. So you have the hypocrite that wants to be like the righteous man, but he's bigging himself up because he thinks he's cunning. So in other words, he thinks that he's a righteous man because he has charisma and he's cunning like that. Because he thinks that he's maneuvering. He thinks that while the righteous man is walking the Sirat al-Mustaqim, the straight path, and he's cutting corners, that he's in actuality the righteous man or the smart man. Does that make sense what I'm saying? But as you see, he's laboring. So he's saying that maybe I can get to being more righteous quicker than him by doing these things that are more unsavory to get to this point, because we're all trying to get to the same place. So maybe if I do it this way. All right. Instruction 14. O fool, fool, the pains which thou takest to hide what thou art are more than it would make thee what thou wouldest seem. Let me stop right there. So basically, the more the energy that you're taking, the more energy that you're putting in to deceive and do these things, you can have less energy if you go about it the more righteous way. And the children of wisdom shall mock at thy cunning, and in the midst of security thy disguise is stripped off, and the finger of desertion shall point thee to scorn. So in other words, again, you're taking more energy to be deceitful versus taking the lighter route and using less energy to be righteous. And sooner or later, you're going to be exposed. The children of wisdom are going to expose you. Your peers are going to expose you. How many of us, when we were young, when we were in preschool, and you got in trouble, and the whole classroom was like, oh. Y'all remember that? Ooh. You remember how you felt? You felt like this small? That's what happens. That's what happens. That's what it's saying right there in instruction 14. The children of wisdom. And you're going to feel that small, scoring you to the stoop. This is the ideal of sincerity. Sincerity is within the heart. It's in the spirit. It's in the spirit in which Allah has breathed within you. All right? Sincerity is there with you because Allah has put it in you. So it's up to you to listen to that. Listen to that still small voice. Listen to that voice that says, I'm a Moorish American. I have a job to do. Not I'm a Moorish American. I'm going to go show off this fez and this turban. Not I'm a Moorish American. I'm going to show off all this wisdom and knowledge that I got. I'm just going to go regurgitate it and not know what it means. That's being of the hypocrite. That's not being righteous. That's being deceitful. And that's not the route that you want to go. That's going to be on the path to your own destruction. Because what's going to happen is when you get your feelings hurt, the first thing you're going to say is what? The temple ain't. The temple didn't. The temple wasn't. When all along the temple was you.
Islam.
All is well, family? Any questions?
Teaching sheep.
Comments? Okay. I love y'all, Moors.
Love you back, Sheik.
Love you too, sheep.
Next Wednesday is the solar cycle of our prophet, Noble Drew Ali, our divinely prepared prophet, Noble Drew Ali, the Redeemer. For those that think that they would have known about being a Moorish American and placing yourself in the affairs of men without the prophet, Noble Drew Ali, is fooling themselves. Noble Drew Ali is a prophet that was sent to us. He is a man that was more than inspired by Allah. He had the spirit of the prophet within him, of many prophets before him, teaching the same knowledge of peace and goodwill to men, teaching wisdom, will, and love, teaching that there is something more than just being a descendant of a slave, teaching you more than you just wake up, go to work, being a slave to the rhythm. He showed you, or he presented to you the way of your forefathers. He presented to you a destiny which is not uncertain or unknown. An ideal that you are not. He puts you back into the cosmic scheme of things. Because we as Asiatics, we don't see ourselves in this cosmic scheme of things. We don't see ourselves as we need to put us playing a part. We don't. I can tell you that right now. Because if we saw ourselves as playing a part, then the streets would be better than what they are. We wouldn't have to worry so much about our sons, our daughters, our wives, our children, our grandmothers, our grandparents. We would have thriving communities. All right? Investing in your own. We wouldn't have this conversation, this weekly conversation about improvement. But it needs to be heard. Because we need to be reminded of how great we are. Because there's a point in our lives where we think that we were less than, by way of European psychology. So even if it's twice a week, we have to be reminded of the work that we are called to do.
Yes, sir.
The same improvement that you want for yourself is the same improvement that your neighbors are going to want for themselves as well. So, our prophet, Noble Drew Ali, he will be honored this coming Sunday. For those that do not have tickets, please get them. It'll be from 6 p.m. to 12 a.m. You get to see all of the Moorish Americans come out and honor their prophet.
That's right, Sheik.
You get to see the stories, or you get to hear the stories about how you went from a beast to a man. How you went from a rough ashlar to a smooth ashlar.
Watch out, Sheik. I hear you.
You get to see the improvement of one's character. And that in itself is a blessing. You know, and it's something that, you know, that we need to promote within our communities. We need to promote good men and good women. Good children as well. Islam Moors?
Islam.
Okay.
Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Hayya ala salah. Allahu Akbar.